Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise pros, Stan the Man, Paul Segreto. Time to show you the way of franchising today. Hey, do you possess the spirit of an entrepreneur? Wanna lay your business plan down like a rug or a floor? Or maybe you have a dream of opening a chain of delis, or whatever passion lights that pilot light under your belly. Or do you want to start a business, fam, using the proven trademark from another brand? And grow together and expand like a rage of fire, from a single to a multi-unit empire. Well, pay attention to this podcast that you hear and streaming in HD to fine-tune both of your ears. And Stan and Paul lays down the law. Whether you want to be a franchisee or a franchisor, it's all about sustainable growth, the sensible franchising, proven concepts, and smart enterprising. So use your left and right side of your brain and absorb this knowledge here, franchising today. Badlands, baby. Franchising today. Sustainable growth, the sensible franchising. Franchise today. Sustainable growth, the sensible franchising. Franchise today. Franchise today. Franchising today. Yeah.
Hello, everyone in the franchise world. My name is Paul Segreto, and this is Franchise Today. Today is Wednesday, March 28th, 2018. I'm reporting live from the Woodlands, Texas, just outside of Houston. And my co-host, Stan Friedman, is about 30,000 feet above the United States, heading home. So he will not be with us today. He has spent the last day along with Dr. John P. Hayes, who's now the Titus Chair for the Franchise Leadership and Director of the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University in West Palm Beach, Florida. Stan was there along with a bunch of other franchise notables, being on the advisory board of this great new program. And a matter of fact, you'll be able to learn more about that program as Dr. John Hayes will be our guest next week on Franchise Today. So Stan, safe travels. You know, today is a day of giving, which is the end of the month of giving from Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's expects to generate $6 million in sales today and give it all to charity. It's the sub-company's 8th annual day of giving, when 1,360 Jersey Mike's sub-restaurants nationwide will donate their resources and, get this, 100% of sales to help local organizations. Day of Giving is the culmination of Jersey Mike's Month of Giving fundraising campaign that occurs every March, supporting more than 170 local charities across the nation. My hat goes off to Peter Cancro, the founder and CEO of Jersey Mike's, as well as his entire team and just an entire band of franchisees from coast to coast. Well done, Jersey Mike's. On another note, you know, we routinely, or I guess, you know, on occasion, better than routinely, we have our segment of You Just Can't Make That Up. Yeah, this is another one. In-N-Out Burger sues prankster posing as their CEO. Yep, that's right. The California institution In-N-Out Burger commonly takes legal action against other burger joints violating their highly coveted trademarks. But in its most recent claim, the fast food icon is suing a man for being an executive copycat and social media troll. The prankster barged into employee-only areas, making demands in front of customers. With the help of others, the mid-March visits were covertly filmed. Savvy employees, of course, never bought into it because they know who the CEO is. Of course, that's the granddaughter of In-N-Out founders. And that would have been Lindsay Snyder. So, you know, you just can't make those type of things up, and I'm glad to say at least it wasn't Kentucky Fried Chicken again this week, who seems to be finding a regular place in our You Just Don't Make That Up. Anyway, today's show is titled Flash Frozen. We're going to have Jerry Hancock. I'm going to introduce just a second who's the co-founder and CEO of Sub-Zero Nitrogen Ice Cream. You know, he and his wife, Naomi, the other co-founder, said the greatest reward from their 12-year-old venture has proved the sense of discovery they've had in taking an idea from concept to implementation and now to expansion in growth. And just as Disney had a hit with the movie Frozen, Naomi and Jerry have a hit with Flash Frozen. Jerry, welcome to Franchise Today.
Well, thank you. It's good to talk to you, Paul.
You know, and this is definitely long overdue. Obviously, I know you and the brand quite well. Had worked with you, you know, some years back, and of course, in a matter of full transparency, my company, Franchise Foundry, is working with you again, and we're really excited to do so. But of course, this is not about me and my company today. It is about you and your company. And of course, a lot of people would want to understand, you know, how you got to this point. How did Sub-Zero come about? What was the life of Jerry Hancock life before that? So take us back as far as you would like to the point of actually starting Sub-Zero Ice Cream.
Okay. Well, I've learned, you know, you learn a lot as you grow in life, and one thing I've learned is that everybody's unique, and that's one thing. Everybody has their own, you know, experiences through life. I was an aircraft mechanic. I worked on F-16, got a degree in chemistry, went to work in software engineering. So naturally, I went into food. So it's, but I was got laid off from a software job, and this was, and I went to my wife and I said, you know, my chemistry degree didn't really get me very good GPA. It didn't give me a good GPA to get into MBA school. So at least the ones I wanted to go to, and I thought, let's just buy a franchise. And so we actually bought a franchise, and recognizing that there was a lot to learn from people that have done a business before. So, and I think that's, I recognize, even though we bought a franchise at the time that wasn't very strong, we bought a company, a wrap store. We made burritos, and but there was a franchising adds a, you know, there's a lot of complicated things when you're opening up a store or a business, especially something that has branding with it. The recipes, you know, the menu boards, the sourcing, the decor, just all of those things. So I recognized early on that that was of a benefit to buy a franchise and to use their knowledge, the manuals, what have you. Now, we had a very big space. We over leased, and we needed to add something else. And we'd planned for that. We'd kind of had like we'd had a partition up between the space that we weren't using, and we started looking to see what we could add. And ironically, everybody said ice cream, and I had no idea. I just started polling people and saying, you know, what do you think we should add? We're going to add another counter, another store to this, you know, the combo concept. And everybody said ice cream. And I said, well, ice cream, I don't know anything about ice cream. So I started researching ice cream, and one thing that the ice cream manufacturers said is don't do ice cream unless it's different. They said people, you know, the brands are strong, and that people will pass a local and go to the name brand. They said the name brand is a really big deal. So and they gave one caveat. They said unless it's different. So I then had to figure out what was different. So I started interviewing customers and asking what they liked about the top brands. And it all came down to customization. So then it was like, well, how do you make it more custom than what was out there at the time, where you'd add a mix in, and that's about all you could do. And the only thing I could come up with is flavors. Nobody could customize flavors. Your flavors have to be put in when they're frozen, or before it's frozen. And so we defined the product as freeze it after you order it. So that's how it started. And then we just, it was just roll the dice and let's see if we can figure out how to do it. There weren't any nitrogen ice cream shops that I knew of. There was one store in Iowa that was using liquid nitrogen, but they weren't doing it in front of the customer. It was done with the batch. So it was done in the back room. They had a patent on the machine. They ended up going out of business mainly because they developed the product while they were grad students at Iowa State, and Iowa State ended up taking their patent back, and so they really didn't have much to sell. So at that point in time, but it wasn't a customer-facing product, and we felt like if we were going to make something for the customer frozen, from liquid, it had to be all presentation. It had to be, the big part of it had to be that customer interaction. So taking the product, starting from liquid, go to solid within seconds, all in front of the customer. That's where we started in a nutshell.
So what was it like when you were testing this out? I mean, obviously there wasn't, type of recipe or process or whatever. I imagine there had to be some trials and tribulations along the way.
Yeah, I figured when we first started, we thought it would take about a year to test out, and it took about 4 years to really test out. And so we built our second store, which was our prototype store. The first store we were serving out of, but it was really and we were charging people, but it was still very, very, very prototype. And the second store was more something that was reproducible. And so so for 2005 to 2008, we were just testing. And so nitrogen's really, really difficult to. So anyway, how it came about nitrogen, I guess we first started looking at a lot of different processes. So we looked at, trying to run it through a small batch ice cream machine that would sit back on the counter, and you'd have 15 of them going at a time, and people would take their order. But it still takes about 2.5 minutes to make an ice cream that way, and it's just too long. And so it was, then you got a lot of cleaning, a lot of equipment, electrical, that type of thing. My degree's in chemistry. I mentioned earlier that everybody's unique. Everybody's got a unique background. I'm fairly mechanical because I worked on F-16s and I've worked on cars before, but I had a chemistry degree. So my wife saw an article in Popular Science, and it was talking about liquid nitrogen ice cream. It was that it didn't give enough information to really reproduce it. And then when I actually interviewed the author years later, he said, well, the pictures weren't, what the product was. So it was kind of a, and there was a lot of language in the article that were meant as a joke, and like he used the word a syrup of liquid nitrogen, a syrup of liquid nitrogen. Well, there's no nitrogen is not a syrup. He was just trying to, be funny by using some cooking terms. And anyway, the point of the matter is that it sent us off in different directions of investigating how to do this. And so we tried, like deep bowls, wide bowls, mixers. We tried all these different things. But the thing about nitrogen is it's really, really hard to control how it freezes, because it just freezes so fast. And it doesn't mix. It doesn't, dry ice will, when it's cold, will dissolve into the product. So if you're carbonating something, or it will dissolve into it. Well, nitrogen doesn't do that. It has a completely different phase, and so it won't dissolve into the product. Now that's to our advantage, actually, because it doesn't change the flavor, and it evaporates completely out. But understanding how to get the texture right was a challenge. We ironically started with, we had that other shop. We weren't really doing that well, and we needed to add something, tough location. And we started with all military surplus equipment. And so all of our original equipment, which some we still use today with catering, we bought as military surplus. So it's, anyway.
Very interesting. I could only imagine what it must have been like waking up every day trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to run into today? What is it going to be like? What do I do? How do I progress? What's the next steps? All the while, your mind thinking ahead, thinking back on some of the things that didn't work. I mean, a 4-year process of perfecting something, I imagine at that point was more of a labor of love than anything. Tell us some of the highs and lows during that 4-year period.
Well, it's always been, I don't know, that period probably wasn't, it was, the hardest part is we just were trying to make something happen. At that point in time, we had this store, this burrito shop that wasn't making money, that I had to go back to work in software engineering, and so I was going back and forth. So I was going to my software job and then working the lunch shift and going back to the software job, and then I'd go back and work the dinner shift, and then I'd test in between when I had time, and then close at 11 o'clock at night and start the morning all over again. I did that for years, quite a long time. So I think I still had a software job when we still had, I think we had 5 stores. We still had 5 stores, and I was taking time off of the software job to go build other people's stores. So I would, because at that point in time, we didn't have enough, we were just, anyway, that's how, much of a bootstrap it was. So that was tough. I don't remember that being, I remember, now I think about it as like almost impossible. How could I even have done what we did? But I brought in, on that first prototype store, I was pitching across the counter. So I'm making burritos and I'm pitching this idea across the counter as I'm making people's burritos. And I guess the thing that was the toughest is I got 2 guys to put up $10,000 to build that first prototype store. And what was probably the toughest was not having the partnership work. And then so they wanted to run the store very, their way, which is fine, but I'm the one that's actually there. They weren't there. And when I finally had people walking out, because of lack of service, because of their operational things, I said, hey, this has got to end. And they said, well, buy us out. And so I was like, all right. So I went and took a loan out for my dad and bought him out. So that's probably the now there's a little caveat to that, and it's kind of interesting. People will do different things, and that's and it's while I'm buying their stock out, and this is after hours, this one individual goes and tries to steal the contract out of my briefcase, and years later claimed that he owned half the company.
Oh, wow.
So it's so they think it. I think, but you know, the probably the most rewarding thing is just solving the problems. You know, it's when you think about, I can walk into a competitor store that's using nitrogen now, and I go, oh, you know what? I bet their nitrogen cost is 3 times what mine is. I can tell, you know, nitrogen is not something that's very easy to measure, and it's a very critical part of our business. So, you know, having something that's efficient and that works is really important. So anyway,
talking about Jerry, talking about liquid nitrogen, I know at the beginning there was an issue holding you back from expanding as quickly as you and Naomi had hoped, and of course that was the liquid nitrogen gas. And as it turns out, many brands refused to sell you the product, you know, because of, you know, what they thought to be, you know, liability reasons.
Well,
you know, so take us through that part of solving that problem to where you are today, because I know even franchise candidates today have a question right away about, you know, the safety of liquid nitrogen.
So nitrogen is, just to clarify what it is, a nitrogen is an element that is on the periodic table it's 80% of the air we breathe. So it's very non-toxic. But as a liquid, it's very, very cold. So there's 3 components that can happen. When things are cold as a liquid, then they can expand into a gas. If they do that, they can cause pressure problems. So there's 3 risks, and that's that if you have too much nitrogen, it drives out oxygen. So that's the safety in a nutshell. Is you're dealing with cold, you're dealing with asphyxiation, but you're also dealing with pressure. And all those things we dealt with. It's very, very, very safe. When I went to talk to the health department, the first time I walked in the store, not the store, but, you know, the office. They said, okay, this is what I'm planning on doing. I need your approval before we move to, you know, start construction. And they said, you're doing what? And they said, you can't put a chemical into ice cream mix. And I said, and I was kind of, I really regret being so sarcastic, but I said, why not? And then I huffed and puffed. I went, and then the guy, because I was trying to show, like, I breathe nitrogen. You guys are part of the health department. You should know this. And anyway, the guy turned around without even saying a word and went to the rest of the room, and he says, guess what this guy's going to do? So he started with, like, you're not going to do this, to 1 minute, the next minute saying, this is really cool. This is what, you know, basically approval. Now, you mentioned difficulty in getting nitrogen. Well, when I first started, there really wasn't, you know, delivery for nitrogen for food. There was just at the beginning of stages of CO2 delivery, where they brought a bulk truck in and filled this bulk CO2 tanks that are in the back, but usually the CO2 were smaller tanks. So they really didn't have the equipment to do retail, and I was taking small 50-liter dewars down to the welding shop and filling nitrogen, and I'd come back, and they vent, you know, especially when they're first filled. So they vent, and it's cold, so if it's humid outside, it would leave a cloud of water vapor behind your truck. And so, so I'd be driving this truck, this little Nissan truck with these 2 tanks in the back, and it'd be, you know, venting with the cloud, and people would be honking at me like, hey, it's going to blow. And I'd be like, can't talk to them. You know, it's like, yeah, thumbs up. And so I just, I remember those days as just being fun. But then we went, and then I bought a then the next scale was like I'm going too often down to the welding shop to get nitrogen, and I thought, well, I'll look and see what I can find. Military surplus. Bought a 400-gallon trailer tank, from the Air Force, and still have it today. I take it in parades and do, but we actually use it on a pretty consistent basis. So it's, but I was going to have them come fill it out in the parking lot, and then I would just have a place to go fill smaller tanks off of. Well, when the Praxair came and looked at the tank, they said, well, you're not using food-grade nitrogen. And I said, what are you talking about? So they actually forbid me from going down to pick up nitrogen from the welding shop. So I got cut off from supply right there. Now, the difference between food-grade nitrogen and standard-grade nitrogen is food grade is essentially medical grade, and it has to be 99% pure. Standard grade, on the other hand, is certified to be 99.99% pure. So dealing with a bureaucratic organization, is it recognizing that 99.99 is more pure than 99? Was a little frustrating. So I had to find an alternate supply, and I ended up getting a truck and having to drive it down to a fill plant, a $45 million plant where they actually liquefy the nitrogen and then pick it up and take it back. And so as we go through this process, we had to find something sustainable, and that was probably getting that leap in in that time period, making the leap to where it was sustainable and reproducible. I obviously couldn't have a franchisee do what I did in the early days. It's just not possible.
Sure. Yeah, well, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Jerry. You're listening to Franchise Today. I'm Paul Segreto, flying solo today as my co-host Dan Friedman is 30,000 feet above the earth right now on his way back home to Atlanta. And my guest today is Jerry Hancock, the co-founder and CEO of Sub-Zero Ice Cream, as he's telling us about the easy journey of entrepreneurship. Franchise Today is brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering best-in-class CRM and document management software designed specifically for franchising. FRM empowers real-time business intelligence, communications, and collaboration between all members of the franchisor's team and prospective as well as existing franchisees. This enables you to simply and seamlessly track, access, and manage all messages to and from prospective and existing franchisees, including text. Legal and compliance is simplified as well, with FRM's document management, and even site visits can be digitally facilitated and scored with FRM. Make today the day you give FRM a look and ensure that all of your candidate and franchisee correspondence, including text messages, are being permanently tracked and stored in candidate and franchisee records. FRM even provides state-of-the-art digital experiences for your prospective franchisees, replacing old-style virtual brochures. No long-term contracts, multiple upgrades each year at no additional cost. No excuses, just solutions on the web at frmsolutions.com. Franchise Today is also brought to you by Franchise Foundry, where they've been bringing emerging brands to market for more than 30 years. The Foundry fosters healthy, sustainable growth for their clients, the kind that comes from experience. Franchise Foundry provides both coaching and consulting, a hybrid approach that delivers more effective solutions for both the franchisor's corporate team as well as their franchisees. The Foundry team is rich in practical hands-on experience and expertise with general business management, operational and change management, digital marketing, and, of course, franchise recruitment and development. Plus, the Foundry team can also assist you with creating roadmaps with potential mergers and acquisitions and provide you with the guidance needed to navigate them. Learn more about the Franchise Foundry, along with an expanding list of clients at www.franchisefoundry.com. Jerry, you mentioned you couldn't actually have early-stage franchisees doing what you were doing. I mean, obviously, you had some hurdles to go through. But, of course, you were having fun along the way. And I know, the customer experience is a big part of the experience at Sub-Zero Ice Cream. And I know you and Naomi were hoping to jumpstart some youthful curiosity. You had a slogan for a while, Delicious Science. Yourself and the franchisees offering in-school demonstrations on how liquid nitrogen works with ice cream samples. I mean, this is something they no longer had to go to museums. They could see it live. I mean, to me, now working with you close with Sub-Zero Ice Cream, I mean, this is what I'm seeing. It's really not only a children experience, but a family experience. Tell us how that really helped change, or actually evolve, from just being an ice cream place to really being a destination, because that's the way I look at Sub-Zero, and that's the way I hear a lot of customers look at it.
Yeah, it's so I've always liked exploratoriums, or some of the, and some of those things aren't really in most markets. If you look at like the Exploratorium in San Francisco, or some of the other children's museums or science museums, they're in Chicago, they're in Toronto. They're not in most cities, and if they are, they're kind of expensive. They're something you do. It's not something you can do every day. So when we started this, we recognized that this was a science-based product. My wife's a teacher, or she was a teacher, and so we thought the wonderment that you get with learning with the History Channel, for a better term, or even the Food Network. We get to see all these things on the Food Network, but you don't get to experience them. So, it may be great to see, Bobby Flay cook a burger, but unless you actually do it and taste it, then it doesn't become a complete experience. And that's one thing that we also recognize, and one of the reasons the science comes into play is because the product is so different. When you freeze it that fast, you get smaller water crystals, and you also don't get air whip. Most ice cream is half air, and so it's so that air whip really changes the texture and how it comes across on your palate. So it's so we recognized early on that it was going to be there was a lot of hurdles when you're dealing with something brand new. One of which is educating the public. If people have only known ice cream as one thing, how do you let them know that it's different? I remember the first time when we first opened in that prototype store. Counters open, signs on, menus up. And a guy walked in to get a burrito, and he says, "When are you going to open up your ice cream shop?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's open." And he goes, "Well, where's your freezers?" I go, "Oh." I guess you would expect to see freezers in an ice cream shop. Well, we don't have any freezers. So it's so some of those hurdles about, how do you name it? How do you be clever? But, in that early stage, you can't be too clever. One of the first signs I put up said Sub-Zero Cryo Creamery. And I was thinking, and I remember I mentioned earlier the company was called Blue Sky Creamery in Iowa. And I'd made contact with them and just let them know what I was doing, and it was that I was calling it Cryo Creamery. Now these guys are science geeks, too, And they were like, oh, I wish I would have thought about that name. But cryo is, I figured people had watched enough Arnold Schwarzenegger science fiction films that they knew what cryo meant. And but people couldn't get past that word. They couldn't. They wouldn't go to creamery. They go, oh, cryo. I don't know what that is, and they just give up. So naming things was difficult in the early stage. We started with Sub-Zero, or then we went to Sub-Zero ice cream to just tell what it is. Now then we could start to educate people once people came in. Today we can say Sub-Zero ice cream, nitrogen ice cream, but that's because we had 10 to 15 years of the public being educated on what that is.
Wow. So it's been quite a journey, and I know I chuckled when you said about a customer not seeing freezers, and it really is something that I think has really helped the business model, because you have a smaller real estate footprint. You don't have those expensive costs of freezers. It's actually the cost of entry getting into Sub-Zero is quite reasonable when compared to others in the frozen space. But you also mentioned something earlier about using the portable tanks to cater and to do demonstrations, and obviously that's a lot different than an ice cream place just bringing a bucket of ice cream and a scooper. Obviously that plays into it as well. What is the day in the life of a franchisee look like with Sub-Zero ice cream?
Well, we don't really. Most stores don't open until about noon. The busy times in the summer, we starts getting pretty busy about 2 or 3. But really, when it picks up, it's at 8 o'clock at night. That's when our busiest time is. So sometimes it kind of feels like a family nightclub, if you will, because it's so late. It's after people. I learned early on that. And this is one of probably the hardest things, is that about the timing is it. But in the burrito shop, if I knew by 2 or 3 what my day was going to be like, but in the ice cream shop, I don't know what it's going to really be like till 8:30, 9 o'clock. Now I could probably set my clock on my last store. I really could. I could set my clock on when I'd see a line form. So it's fairly predictable, in different markets are going to be different. Near Air Force bases, it's going to be earlier traffic. So it's going to be, but then if the thing that's nice about our product, you mentioned about going mobile. Well, ice cream is really, really hard to take mobile. It's really difficult to keep frozen. You got to freeze it in an ice cream machine, and then you got to keep it frozen all the way through. So it's perishable. And the first wedding show we did, there were 3 ice cream shops there, and people were just going around taste testing. Well, anyway, this is probably 2009. So there's Cold Stone was there, and they were early stage of their catering, and their freezer wasn't operating correctly, so their ice cream was thawing, but just from the top. So they were just scooping off the top and throwing it away. And now we bring it thawed, so everything we bring is in a cooler and ice, and we don't really have the perishable problem, because as long as there's ice, it's safe. So anyway, I felt bad for him, so I went over and said, "Hey, can I refreeze your ice cream for you, so you don't have to throw it away for the next day, or keep going?" So I actually went over there and refroze our ice cream. So that's one of the huge advantages we have, is that we don't have to take a freezer out. We don't have to, the cost of doing mobile is so much lower. We don't have to have generators. We can do everything very, very portable. Now, in the science presentations, it's very much a lot of people think of like when you come out to do a presentation as a company, it's very much corporate based. You're just trying to do marketing. You know, when the pizza companies come out and do a day with the elementary schools, you know, they're just making pizza. They're not really doing much as far as like STEM education. It's good education, don't get me wrong, on how to make a pizza, but when we go out, we very intentionally have made the information we present not about ice cream. So we use nitrogen to talk about atmosphere, the ideal gas law, condensation, evaporation, states of matter, and then water crystal structure. But the water crystal structure is where we tie it into the ice cream, because that's what makes the difference, is how the water crystal forms. And then we do serve ice cream at the end. But we feel pretty passionate that there needs to be that wholly educational aspect of the business.
Yeah, that's definitely a key component, without a doubt. And of course, the fact that you're able to, you know, be mobile with your unit obviously provided you a great opportunity when you were on Shark Tank, because you were able to demonstrate right in front of them and serve them with ice cream. But tell us briefly about that experience. You know, so many people are intrigued by Shark Tank, and of course, even today, you know, you see, you know, entire days of reruns on CNBC of Shark Tank. And, of course, I know that all too well, because we start seeing, you know, an influx of leads coming in every time, you know, Shark Tank is aired, and it was the episode where you and Naomi were on the show. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, we went in and we applied, and ironically, you know, the best way to apply, I mean, you could do casting calls, but we just sent an email. I put some video in, and wasn't very good. Anyway, I'm really not very good at voicemail. We emailed, so I expected an email back. So they've sent a voicemail. And 30 days later, I'm checking my voicemail. And anyway, luckily we met their casting call deadline. They flew us down. It's very, very, you have no idea whether you're going to be on the show or you're going to air. They fly you down. It's all right, you got 5 days you need to be available. If you're not available, you're out. Okay, so we're going to be available. So we fly down. You go through an orientation, and then you do a brief presentation in front of the producers, and then you go back to the hotel, and they'll call you if they want you. And then the next day, that you give you a call. Okay, you got 15 minutes to be out in the front. We went out at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it was 7 o'clock at night. We're sitting in a dressing room that entire time, just practicing our pitch. And we're like, we're not going to get filmed. It was the last day of, I think, second to the last day of filming for the year. And so we're like, if you don't get filmed, that's it. So, but even if you do get filmed, you may not air. And so so they call us. We're, I think, second to last filming of the night. And the reason we were so late is because the lots require fire marshals when you're dealing with certain things, like if you have a flame. So if there's a flame or electrical or nitrogen, the fire marshal has to stand there. He just hadn't showed up yet. So it's so we were waiting that whole day just for the fire marshal to come. So we go through and we had some pre-made ice cream. We're going to give the sharks, and they're starting to soften. And if you and so everything's already set up, and we're behind the curtain, and they don't know anything about what you're going to bring. You know, and I said, hey, I really want to go out there and freshen up these ice creams. The producer's like, no, you can't go out there. You know, they can't see you. They can't get a clue to what's heading their way. And I was like, oh, well, unbeknownst to us, right before us too, who's the Family Guy creator? It's anyway, he's on there with somebody else, and he's eating our mix-ins that are on the table. And I'm like, oh, great. He says, well, I thought it was stage food. And so anyway, so we had to reset up. We go through the gangplank. Then you stand there. So they put you on a mark, and then they say, okay, stop. And then they do camera check. And I am not very animated. I'm not very energetic when it comes to presentation. So they kept on saying, you know, more energy. So I took 2 energy shots before they walked in. So it just hit me as I'm standing there, and I'm getting dizzy. And then they don't give you like 1, 2, 3, go. They go. And I'm like, oh, crap. So you start going. Well, if you notice on the show, I goof. You know, I kind of missed my spot where I was supposed to shoot the nitrogen out at them. And they kind of joke about, like, how did you forget that? Well, I did. I forgot the one thing about our product that really shows well. But it still worked out well, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of stuff that got cut. Like Mark and Lori rushed the stage and wanted to make ice cream. And I must have looked pretty uncomfortable because it was, you know, because it was like they ran toward us. We had to make ice cream, and I would say by the time we were done, Mark probably had 3 or 4 servings.
Wow.
So nothing starts as planned on that show. Like we had each individual person had an ice cream made for them with a specific flavor and mix in, and everybody ended up with different ice creams. So it was so a lot of things we expected to talk about the flavor and like Mark being lactose intolerant, he didn't want the lactose free. So we made a different ice cream for him. So it was a lot of, you know, so it's I would say the most about it is that it's unpredictable. It's completely unpredictable.
Well, and it sounds like the journey from where you started to where you are today, there was a lot of unpredictability along the way. Let's talk a little bit about, as we're getting close to the top of the hour, let's talk a little bit about the franchise model. What does the ideal candidate look like for Sub-Zero?
Well, capital is one. Making sure that I think that ideally having multiple locations is a benefit. Being focused on that location is everything. I mean, it really is for ice cream. There's no substitute for a bad location. I mean, a good location. I meant. You know, you that can make or break a. I would say somebody that is very passionate about, you know, the product. You have to really believe in this product. And I don't want to say that you have to drink the Kool-Aid, but you know, you really need to be believe that this is unique and that there's something we're doing here that's beyond ice cream. And it's not just the science, it's also the dietary. You know, because it's not frozen until you order it, you know, we have vegan options, we have lactose free, we have sugar free in all the different flavors. So there's more choice and availability for people that have dietary needs, and that's kind of really special. You know, there's just nothing like that in the marketplace today. So I think having passion and for the customer, it's really to serve the customer in the way they need it. And then being willing to do what you need to do to make it work. What I mean by that is when I had the burrito shop, the franchise, I was buying equipment from a store that closed, and he was a fireman, and so he would work, 3 days on, 4 days off, something like that. And I said, why are you closing your store? It's profitable, right? And he says, yeah. He says, but it's getting in the way of my fishing. And I was like, if it's going to get in the way of your fishing, don't buy a store. So that's
yeah, it's kind of hard to run a business successfully these days. And of course, hopefully one gets to a point and has the right systems and processes in place and the right managers in place that they can afford to get away every so often. But certainly, entrepreneurship has its requirements. It definitely has its time requirements. Jerry, tell us how. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and you're right. It's just priority, I guess, is what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I think it's a big priority, and I know Sub-Zero, has a pretty wide span of franchisees. I know there's a successful area developer that's with the has ties into the Subway sandwich chain. There's people from all walks of life, and it's real exciting to see the excitement and the passion, from franchisees, and of course even to an extent the ones that are a little bit less aggressive in their business strategy, it still seem to be very passionate to an extent about the brand, and that's good because you're going to have people from all walks of life, and of course, location is a big part of this. But I think probably the number one factor, at least in my mind, and from what I've seen and heard from customers sitting outside, stores and experiencing it myself, is the experience factor. I mean, it is a destination. I know I've seen people, come out and the kids are oohing and ahhing about it and they're chatting about it. And as they're walking outside, they're not even focused on what's in their hands, which, of course, is the ice cream that was just made. It's what they're going to get the next time. I mean, they're already planning the next visit, and I think that's just a testament to what you and Naomi created. Tell our listeners how they could learn more about the franchise opportunities with Sub-Zero Ice Cream.
I would just suggest, there's a lot of YouTube videos. You go on the website and there's some basic information. Google me and Naomi. But and then I would talk to you, Paul, and that's you're going to have the most information. The more, and then also and you're going to contact them with franchisees too that are going to be able to give them, the real day-to-day of what it is to be a Sub-Zero. And I think the other thing too is that look for, the character, of the brand you're looking at, and make sure you're happy with the brands that you're looking at, that they have the same values.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, Jerry, these days. I mean, we hear the word culture a lot, but it is everything, surrounding the organization, and it's being able to live within that, every single day. And a lot of times, candidates don't look at the culture in an organization and find out, not that there's anything wrong, bad, indifferent. It's just not the right fit. And this is a fun, family-focused business. I personally think it's outstanding. Of course, my relationship with you aside, and I look for great things. I mean, Sub-Zero is on the grow. Can you give us just a parting comment as what you see in the future for Sub-Zero Ice Cream?
Well, I think we're going to grow much more rapidly. It's going to be easier to build stores. The more we grow, we'll have better supply chain. So I really see some real positive things going forward. We've gone through the trials, and I think that's as you know, Paul. I mean, there's only a limited number of franchises that have even reached 100 stores. Now we're not to 100 stores, but it's a tough road to hoe. We won't be that far off from that this year. So it's but getting to that stability mark, I think is a real big plus. So we're also bringing on a lot better. Not that our early people are. I'm not trying to knock them, but we're bringing on much more experienced franchisees today than we have in the past, and that's and we have a variety of different people. We have people that are from safety, from food, and that's one of the benefits I think we have is the fact that over, say, our competitors in the nitrogen space, is that our team has such a broad background, from oil and gas safety managers, where we bring in that real strong safety experience, to the subway area developers, which, by the way, we're the number one subway area developers last year. So it's these are not they're the top of the bunch.
Yeah, definitely bringing in experience. I think that's all a testament to the brand and the business model, and certainly the results of opening a store now every few weeks is certainly results enough to prove out. So, Jerry, I really want to thank you for being on Franchise Today. It's most appreciated. I know our listening audience is definitely excited about it. For more information on Sub-Zero Ice Cream, you can obviously contact myself or anybody here at Franchise Foundry. But look at the website www.subzeroicecream.com. There's all kinds of articles online on entrepreneur.com, Cranes, you name it. There's out there. Just Google Sub-Zero Ice Cream or Jerry and Naomi Hancock. Jerry, again, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, that's another show on the books. We've definitely missed Stan today. He'll be back with me next week. Bring on Dr. John Hayes, and we'll be talking about some of the new things that he has going on, and especially in the education aspect, as he's the director of the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University. Some people aren't aware he'll be teaching courses that actually lead to a bachelor's degree with a concentration in franchising. I myself am very, very excited about that. And so until next week, my name is Paul Segreto, wishing you the best, the very best in this great, great thing we call franchising and Franchise Today.
Franchise Pros.
Out.
Stan the man, Paul Segreto. Time to show you the way of franchising today. Hey, do you possess the spirit of an entrepreneur? Or lay your business plan down like a rug or a floor? Or maybe you have a dream of opening a chain of delis, or whatever passion lights that pilot light under your belly. Or do you want to start a business, fam, using the proven trademark from another brand? And grow together and expand like a rage of fire, from a single to a multi-unit empire. Well, pay attention to this podcast that you hear and streaming in HD to fine-tune both of your ears. And Stan and Paul lays down the law. Whether you want to be a franchisee or a franchisor, it's all about sustainable growth, the sensible franchising, proven concepts and smart enterprising. So use your left and right side of your brain and absorb this knowledge here, franchising today. Badlands, baby. Franchising today. Sustainable growth, the sensible franchising. Franchise today. Sustainable growth through sensible franchising. Franchise today. Franchise today. Franchise today. Yeah.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.